This is the You Not Me podcast with Chris Bierman. I'm your host, Jared Odenbeck. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the reality of being in the fire in life, and that actually you can wield that fire in a way to take hold of its power and create powerful shared experiences that can shape you both relationally and in your own personal growth. In today's episode, Chris is going to mention a number of real life examples and to give you plenty of practical wisdom for how you can do this in your own life. So, Chris, welcome on today.
Thanks. Excited for it.
So, first, Chris, I just want to talk about, why do shared experiences matter so much? And, maybe before we even get into that, I think it's important to define what a shared experience even is. So, just in the context of this episode, how would you define a shared experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly what it says. It's sharing an experience, a life event, doing something hard or doing something enjoyable, whatever, but walking through life with somebody else. And it's just so different when you do something with somebody versus on your own and alone. And yeah, you can have some amazing experiences on your own, but then you can never truly have somebody else that understands exactly what you've been through. And there are really, really hard times. There's even something called trauma bonding, like where people go through such unbelievably hard experiences that it bonds you together. But again, the biggest thing is that when you go through anything together with somebody else, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, the whole point of whether or not you actually grow together and you develop a deep relationship and experience through that is a perspective you have going through it.
Absolutely. And you touched on it a little bit, just kind of differentiating between, yes, you can experience some amazing things, on your own by yourself, but why are shared experiences over individual experiences so foundational to connection with others and even your own personal growth?
Yeah, I mean, just even thinking back in my own life is, whether it was, playing on different teams, whether it's college and the pros, whether it's just walking through events with my family, friends, etc., even doing something as silly as a Go Ruck challenge with a bunch of buddies where we basically paid a bunch of money to do a military exercise where we go out and get tortured for basically about 13 hours, from 10 at night till 12 the next day. And we just suffered. And just the fun that you have and the ability to talk to somebody about that experience that happened in the past and the future and how you're able to draw conclusions from that person or those people that you did it with that actually helps you see their character but also helps them see your character and you're able to see truly that are people for me and are you for other people. You can really show how much you genuinely care about somebody when you go through those experiences because hard times, those hard challenges, they actually bring out and really highlight what your character is, whether you have great character or whether you're lacking in great character. And so it's one of those things where I've had some amazing experiences and these people have become lifelong friends and it's all because of going through hard times together, but even some fun times. And it's just the perspective and the heart of which you go through those.
For sure. And one of the most helpful analogies I think I've heard about going through these trials, going through these challenges, as you said, whether it's something that's a created trial where you're paying, for the rucking thing, it's just like masochism is what that is. People that like pain. Please let me pay you so you can put me in pain. Um, whether it's something like that or whether it's something that happens to you that's totally unchosen, not at all within your control. And that analogy is just this analogy of fire. It's such a helpful image because fire can obviously do a number of things. Fire can give you warmth. Fire can, purify things. Fire can also destroy you. And so I heard an analogy from someone who said that fire can be either a test that kind of proves your worth and refines you, or it can be something that destroys you. And that is, entirely conditional on your mindset in terms of which one it is. So how would you kind of apply that analogy to this kind of thing with shared experiences?
Yeah, if, again, back to what you're talking about with the fire, and so it's if you go through a really hard time, say for example, you maybe fall short in something that you're trying to achieve. And what was highlighted was that maybe you weren't prepared enough in certain areas. There's a fire that can test you, to almost like a pop quiz in school, where it's like, hey, we're just going to see where you are right now, so we're going to actually, throw you into this test, and have you been keeping up with the material along the way. And the hope is that once you go through it, whether you pass with flying colors, or if actually you just had a total meltdown, and you didn't know what was going on because you hadn't kept up, it gives you the opportunity to reflect and to really step back and say, okay, where do I need to shore up some things? Do I need some additional teaching or training or learning in those areas, or do I need more discipline as a person even? And how do I then right the ship? And maybe I've been going off in the wrong direction, but how do I get back on track to where I want to be? And so, um, but also, like the fire, I mean, when you look at whether it's, creating a sword or a knife or whatever, it's, you're heating the metal so that it's so hot that you're able to, hit it with a hammer, and then that metal actually bends and you can shape it. Unless it is actually heated to a really high temperature in the fire, you can't shape it. Actually, when you pound it and pound it, what will happen a lot of times, if it's not heated correctly, it'll be broken. It'll be destroyed. And so, so that fire can do a number of things. But even too, just, when you look at gold, I mean, the whole way gold is purified is it's heated to this unbelievably hot temperature. All the impurities rise to the top, and then you scrape off all the impurities and you take it out, and you have a more pure gold. And that's the hope with all of us, is that our life, when we go through these trials, that it doesn't destroy us. That what it does do is it does help us maybe see what are the impurities, where are the places where I need more discipline, or maybe things that I'm doing that are actually hurting me that I need to take away and become more purified in who I want to be, and the purpose, and the way that I'm trying to walk in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that even there's such a powerful unifying moment, something that you talk about quite often at You Not Me is just seeing, an opportunity as seeing, the unity that's in opportunity. Um, and, seeing every interaction as that opportunity to create unity. And I think there's a real powerful moment that happens with both friendship and empathy where, someone has gone through something hard. You see this all the time at, like kids' cancer hospitals and stuff where there's, one set of parents, their kids going through some terrible form of childhood cancer, and they, meet another family who's going through the same thing, and they kind of have this like me too moment. And maybe it's like someone's recently lost a loved one and you did too. And there's such a great opportunity, I think, for people to not only say, okay, I went through that suffering and it was hard, but it grew me personally. But I think there's also such a powerful relationship moment there to say, this isn't just about me. It's not just about my personal growth, but actually, like this suffering can be a teaching moment that I can then use in the future to help build into someone else. And I think that's something that people often miss, unfortunately, when they go through suffering, because the pain is just, so distracting and disorienting that a lot of times you lose focus of others, or you even lose focus of your own personal growth sometimes, just because of the loss or the disappointment or whatever it is. So I just think that's also another huge thing just for people to keep in mind, especially as they start growing and using the you not me mindset in their own lives.
Yeah, no, and I think one of the big keys too is just is being vulnerable. Is, there are some of us that have gone through unbelievably deep suffering, and painful moments, and sometimes they're really hard. We don't even want to talk about them. We just kind of try to shove them down, and we try to just put them behind us. But what I've found is that by being open with the trials that I've been through, sharing with people, and especially even my own two boys, like sharing, hey, this is what I did, and it was a bad decision, and I want you to learn from that so you don't go through it. But also then just coming alongside people, sharing that you've gone through it. And that's, as you said, when you tell somebody about what you've been through and how hard it was, and then somebody else looks at you and says, "Oh my gosh, me too. I've been through that." And then, sometimes those are some of the deepest, most profound friendships, because you have this anchor of this, even though you didn't maybe go through the exact same experience and you didn't go through it together, but you both have been through it, and then you're able to come together and really truly create something that maybe most people don't even understand what you've been through. And I know even my oldest son, with having a number of, four major injuries back to back to back to back in college, and And for me, trying to walk alongside him, and sometimes, I didn't know, even though I've had injuries of my own, I didn't have as many and as long, and so I didn't really know what to do, or what to say. And sometimes the best thing is just to sit and be with somebody, but also, when he found some people that have gone through similar things, it's amazing how he's been able to come alongside them in their trials. Like, he has a new teammate that's dealing with an ACL right now, and he's able to come alongside because he's further ahead of them. And there's somebody else on his team that's going through another major injury. And um, even though we don't want to just go through our sufferings, just because, but at the same time, is there some sort of beauty in that, to where you can take the ashes and the scars and the wound from that suffering and actually make them like ointment, and something for somebody else's wounds, to help them heal, or maybe to help them get through it better than what you did, just by you sharing your story.
Absolutely. And, I think that there's so many simple ways to create these shared experiences in life. Even something as simple as like a group workout at a very low level is something that is a really powerful relational tool. But even something that can, kind of create these mini suffering moments or these mini hardship moments where you can be there for other people. And I know that you have a lot of experience yourself, working out in the past with this organization called F3. So love for you to just kind of share about those experiences and kind of apply those to what we're talking about.
Yeah. So no, it's actually really interesting. F3s, it's a guy's workout. Basically get up at 5:30, or I should say the workout starts at 5:30 in the morning. Regardless of the weather, it can be 10 degrees and snowing, it could be 40 and raining, or it can be, 70 degrees, and it's just a beautiful morning. So basically everybody shows up, and the cool thing is a lot of times you show up and there are new guys showing up that you've never met before, or maybe you're the new person. But the point is they welcome you with open arms. But then what happens is the workout starts, and depending on your fitness level, and this is people of various, fitness levels, everyone from crazy fit to people that haven't worked out for 5 or 10 years and that are trying to get back into it. And there are times where it's awesome to go out and just crush yourself, and race people, because there are different things that where it is basically like a race in some ways. But then also there are times where it's just so fun to drop back with the guys that are suffering, that are just, whether it's taken a while to get in shape, or they've just gotten really out of shape, and to just run alongside them and just to encourage them. And what's really interesting is some of my best friends that I do so many things in life with right now, I actually met through F3. And it was through having those conversations before the workouts, during the workouts, encouraging, challenging people, hanging out afterwards, grabbing coffee afterwards, and just getting to know about, them and their families. And it's an amazing thing, because and again, this is what we're missing in the workplace today, is those abilities to kind of come together, because everything, or a lot of it is just these very sterile, very just work Zoom calls, where you just get on, you talk about work, and you hang up, and you don't have that time before and after, or even in between, to really have good conversation. But it's one of those things where if you really show up, whether it's a run club or whatever, you start to see some, familiar faces that become the same week in, week out, and then that relationship just grows and grows and grows, and just something beautiful is born out of this.
Yeah, it's such an underrated tool to build relationships and even to invest in other people's growth. I mean, I think that, you probably saw from just the times that maybe you spent, at the back end of the group in F3, like a lot of those people probably didn't stay there. They probably started to grow over time, and that doesn't happen without them being there with other people. It's way more difficult to work on your fitness journey, just on your own. If you're showing up to a gym and just getting on a treadmill by yourself, you don't have anyone there to encourage you when it gets hard. And a lot of times people, both in life and in fitness or whatever it might be, they get that inner voice in their head that tells them, "Hey, just quit." Like just give up. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Um, one of my friends, and this guy as well. He played soccer at a Division 3 school, and they had this, treadmill test every spring where you set the treadmill on 6 mile pace or 6 minute mile pace, and you just run as long as you can. Like treadmills shut off after 60 minutes usually, so the ultimate goal of the test, which only a handful of people that I know have ever achieved, is to run until the treadmill just shuts off. So 6 minute mile pace for an hour. Can you do that? How far can you go? And so it was a real test of the will. And obviously, it's an individual test. You're just running by yourself, but your teammates are also there. And before one of the tests, the assistant coach from the school kind of challenged him to say, like, hey, when you're running this test, don't make it about you. Make it about the team. And he was like, what? I'm the guy on the treadmill, dude. What are you talking about? Like,
That's right.
I'm running the test. It's about me. And he was like, no, like, don't let your teammates down by getting off. Like, if you do, you're not loving your teammates well because you're saying, oh, how I feel is more important than the standards that I'm setting and tolerating for you. This guy was also a goalkeeper. Goalkeepers typically are not topping the charts in the fitness category, at least most of the goalkeepers I know. No offense to them. But um, after that conversation, he went into that test and he stayed on for 53 minutes, almost an hour. And he just said he had so much fuel because every single time he
Mm.
felt like, man, I really want to get off. I don't feel good. He would just think of his teammates and he'd be like, am I going to let these guys down? Am I going to let them be better than their best? Like, if I get off, then plenty of people will go, oh, I'm just going to get off now, because this guy got off. Um, but just having that thought of no, like I'm not doing this for me. Because if it's just about me, then whenever you're tired, then you're just going to give up. But if you're doing it for other people, then there's so much more fuel that you can find in those moments where you feel like you're,
Yeah.
just totally, totally running out of gas.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. One of the things that I've learned the most in life is actually out of being a parent. And it's unbelievable, but it translates the same way into other people. But I mean, there's nothing I would not do for my boys or my wife. And then when you look at friends as well, and you say, you know what, I care about that person so much. There's nothing I would not do for them, and I will show up as terrible. There are times, even like with F3, there are times the weather was so terrible. I mean, it was 37 and rainy, and nobody wants to go out in 37 and rain and dark and roll around on the ground and put your hands on the hard concrete and do push-ups and all these other things. But I would go out just to be with my guys, just to be with my buddies. And when you go to the gym, it's amazing. If I do a workout in my house, I'll get a pretty good workout. And there are times like, man, I really do crush myself. But every time I go to the gym, not only do I crush myself, I actually push myself harder. But at the same time, I can do more for some reason. It's weird. I don't know if it's a mental or a physiological. I don't know what it is, but all I know is I can push myself harder and I feel less pain and I can push through more pain when I'm with people doing it, shared experiences versus just on my own.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. That makes me think of this other story. Some people maybe even saw the post that we put up a while ago on Instagram about Florence Chadwick. She was kind of a famous long distance swimmer, so she attempted all these crazy feats. Like I don't remember all of them like specifically, but one of them that she tried was trying to go from Catalina Island off the coast of Southern California all the way to the shore, and it was something insane. It's like a 15-hour swim or something like that. So it's impressive to even attempt something like that, obviously. But um, she had swam for a really long way, was really, really suffering. Obviously, there's the mental piece of just like you're in the water, you can't see anything. Like you don't know where you're at. And there's a boat that's going alongside her, and I think her mom was in the boat or something like that. And obviously like probably some lifeguards or something like that or whatever. But she was probably 14 or so hours into the swim, like really far into it, and basically just started panicking because she had no idea how long she had left. And her mom was kind of trying to encourage her of like, hey, you don't have that long left. Like, keep going. But she couldn't see the finish line. She didn't know like where they were. It was really foggy that day, like when she was doing it. And I guess like she basically just out of pure despair in the end was just like, I quit. And once she got onto the boat, the sun kind of started to burn through the fog a little bit. and they realized that the shore was like a mile away or something like that. Um, and it's such a sad story because there's so many, everyone's seen this thing of the guy with the pickaxe who's like he's whacking his way through the rock, and he's got like a foot left or whatever, and he's already gotten through 100 feet, but he turns around and goes home. And sometimes there's such a power in just having someone alongside you in these things. Like obviously she had her mom, but even her mom's perspective was limited. And um, just this idea of having a guide alongside of you. It doesn't have to be someone that's older, but just someone with wisdom, someone with experience, someone who's been there before. Maybe just speaking to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think the hard thing is it's back to like the old saying, you can't see the forest because of the tree that's right in front of you. You can't see how vast the forest is, and sometimes our perspective is just limited. And there's such utility and such power in somebody that is either standing at it from a different vantage point that can see it, or maybe that's someone that's not suffering like we are that can encourage us along the way, or maybe even it's just somebody that is seeing and taking the entire picture in and knows how deeply and badly you want something, and though your body maybe is failing and your mind is telling you no and stop, they're saying like, no, like I know you can do this, but also I can see it's just right around the corner. I had a friend named John Lancia in high school that he played soccer with me, he wrestled with me and ran track together. And one of the things I hated doing, back to, I mean, that treadmill story sounds terrible because there's nothing worse than running on a treadmill for an hour, maybe just running on the pavement in a straight long line for many hours. But that's kind of what happened with us with track. I was a sprinter. I did the hurdles and I did the 300 hurdles and I did the 400 hurdles, or the 400 meter run. And our coach was like, okay, today just basically run through all these neighborhoods. It's like a 5 mile run. And I was like, oh, I hated those days because it was just painful just to just run on pavement and you can't really see your finish line. You're just running, and it was torture. Like I could chase a soccer ball for 90 minutes all day long, but man, just put me on a paved road just and say go, like that's terrible. And what was amazing is a lot of times John and I would run together, and I would say like halfway through about 2.5 miles or so, I was like, all right, let's just walk for a bit. Let's just chill out. And, we're out here by ourselves, just the two of us. And he's like, no, no, no. He's like, look, he's like, see that stop sign a couple hundred yards away. He's like, let's just run to that. And I was like, okay, fine. All right. We'll run to the stop sign. We get to the stop sign. I'm like, all right, dude, let's just walk now. He's like, no, no, look. He's like, and he points something else out in the distance. And I don't know if he really knew psychologically what he was doing or if he was just a great encourager. But man, I got through a 5 mile run when I didn't want to do it. And sometimes it just takes somebody out there to be an extra set of eyes, or a person that knows and sees what we can do, even though maybe we don't feel like we can or even know that we can in the moment. And that's where just having those other people alongside with you just do amazing things that help you achieve amazing things.
Absolutely. And if we're maybe going to start getting into some of the practical ways that people can do that, I mean, I know you have a number of examples, even from your own life, for ways that people can do that themselves. But maybe speaking to, I know you have a story of when you were doing a triathlon one time of coming alongside people, when they're going through their quote unquote, fire moments. So maybe just riffing off of that, what are some practical ways that people can be there for other people in those moments?
Yeah, I think, I mean, you even said this earlier, is that we can just get so down in like tunnel vision and what we're doing. We don't step up and look out and see what's happening around us. And we can be just so focused, and we miss the need that's around us. And so, yeah, I helped two buddies do their first triathlon. And so kind of helped them with, a training program to get ready. And then the day of the race, we were all the same age. So we took off in the same wave together. And so we started swimming, and I would swim back and forth just to check on them throughout the way. And then we got out, got the one guy on his bike, sent him off, waited for the other guy to come out, got him on his bike, started riding. And then I would ride up, catch up with the first guy, make sure he was doing fine, go back and forth. And in between two of them, one time on the bike, I was trying to catch up with my buddy, and I see this guy walking with his bike on the side of the road. And I went, as I was going by him, I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "No." He said, "I have a flat, but I don't have a tube." And so like I had a choice. Did I just leave him, say like, "Oh, well, sorry, you don't have a tube," and just keep going and catch my friend? but no, I decided to stop. I said, well, I have a tube, so I stopped, changed his tire for him, got him back on the bike, and sent him going. Went back with my friends, helped them finish the race, had a great time. It was probably actually the most fun triathlon I've ever done, regardless of how I've done personally and, had a good placing in other races. That was my most fun triathlon because I was able to help two guys that had never done it before. And they actually found a bit of a love for triathlons from doing it. But then we're standing there talking, just hanging out afterwards. And I hear someone say, "Oh, here he is. This is the guy." And then this guy turns around, he taps me on the shoulder. I turn around and it was the guy that I'd helped change his tire. And it was him. He brought his wife over and he said, man, he's like, if it wasn't for you, I would have never finished this race. And he's like, I just can't thank you enough. And his wife says, oh, thank you. That's so nice. I'm like, no, I'm happy to have done it. But that's just such a great analogy for life is how we can go through and help other people in their moment of need, in their fire, in their trial that they're going through, to finish the race well. And because that guy would have never finished his race. They would have had a van probably come pick him up, put him in the back, or take him to the finish line. But all of us, like, we're in a race to finish this life well. We're all running this race. And the question is, how are we running? And also, are we running with other people? Are we doing it together? And again, we might, you might be at mile 12, I'm just at mile 6, but at the same time, we're both doing the same thing. And can we be an encouragement along the way? Can we see when someone is suffering or going through a hard time, and just make sure we just ask, like, how are you doing? Do you need anything? Are you okay? And it was just as simple as me asking him, are you okay? Do you need anything? And it created a friendship, but also a way that I could be just, a helpful, hand in the moment to help him finish his race.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest keys in that whole entire story is just that you were willing to ask the question. I think so many times people, see things, and a lot of times you can probably recognize, there's something that's not quite right there. Something's maybe a little bit off with this person. Like maybe a work colleague is, acting totally different from how they normally do. Maybe someone, has just had a total change in character in like the past week, kind of out of nowhere. There's obviously some emotional cues that are more obvious than others. But so many times we see people struggling and don't even bother to ask, because maybe we're afraid of, oh, it's going to be an inconvenience for me. And, I'm not going to go home from work at 5. Instead, I'm going to be there till 6, or, whatever it might be. Um, and so I think that just having that shift of saying, can I actually look for needs around me every day, no matter where I'm at, whether I'm playing sports, whether I'm in college, in high school, in a professional career, in the office, whatever it might be. Um, can I just take the time to really be aware of other people? And even just sometimes to listen, because often in conversation, stuff will come up and it's easy to just kind of brush it off and go, oh yeah, it sucks, man. Sorry. Like,
Hmm.
but to actually, really dig into that a bit more and say, how can I be there for you? Like, how can I help you? To take the time to even like empathize with someone and be like, man, that's horrible. Like, I'm here for you. Like, if there's anything I can do at any time in any way, please, like, let me know. And to even follow up on things like that with people, I think goes such a long way just in supporting other people, making them feel cared for, making them feel valued.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I've seen even with there is one of my really good friends, that was having some issues with his marriage, and what I noticed is that when things were not going well, he would kind of go silent, and I wouldn't hear from him on a regular basis. And after time, I realized, okay, if that happens again, it's not just because he's busy at work or whatever. And I call and check in, and there are times where it's been like, no, I'm good, no problem at all, just super busy, which is great. But again, if we see something where we're like someone is not performing at their normal level, like I've seen this before in the workplace, I've seen it, with sports teams when players aren't playing their best or they're a bit off, or same with employees. Some people have a tendency just to like just rip into them, like, because they're not doing well and everything, instead of saying, hold on a second, that's not their norm. Let me ask the question, are you okay? Not just in are you okay? Are you injured? Are you okay? Why is your work suffering? But are you okay? Is your Are you okay at home? Like what, you don't seem like you're quite yourself. Is there anything I can do for you? And it's amazing if you really do that. Like I actually had a company that was going to fire somebody because of this one person's poor work. And I said, well, let me just talk with him for a bit. Sat down, talked to him for about 15 minutes, found out that his wife was going through some major, major health issues. And he was staying up all night being a caregiver, plus trying to work and everything else. And that's why his work was suffering. And nobody knew about it. He didn't share. So, and nobody really took the time to get to know, what was happening in his life or him as a person. And once that happened, not only did his work improve, he actually became one of their top employees. And it was all just by asking a question like, "Is everything okay?" And it's again, there are a lot of people that don't want to get their hands dirty, they don't want to get involved, so they don't want to ask. But my goodness, you can be such a lifeline to people. You can absolutely just change someone's life forever by being that person that's willing to be there in the midst of the fire with them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I would even say, just as we kind of get ready to bring this to a close today, I would just challenge people listening to seek out these shared experiences. Like go sign up for something. Sign up for a run club or a group fitness class or, some kind of testing environment that you can do with other people. It can even be as easy as, inviting a friend to go do something challenging with you, or if it's learning a new skill or anything along these lines. These are all, great ways to create shared experience and foster deeper connections. But I would also at the same time challenge listeners to even reflect and, you know, take some time to think when you're in the fire, and you may even be in it right now if you're listening to this. Maybe you are suffering and you are struggling right now. Um, for the first thing, who are you in the fire with? Do you have other people that are around you? And if not, um, maybe that's another episode that we can talk about. But also, who are you in the fire? It's really easy to think about, oh, this is going to make me better and et cetera, et cetera. But as we mentioned earlier, the fire is often like a pop quiz, and it's going to reveal a lot of parts of your character that maybe you don't really want to see in that moment. So can you even take a step back and shift your mindset and think, who am I in the fire? Am I someone that's getting bitter when the impurities in my life are being stripped away? Am I disappointed because I've lost something that I really cared about? Not that that's an invalid emotion, but can you have the perspective again to kind of, if we're talking about Florence Chadwick, to kind of get above the fog and see, hey, the end goal is here. The end goal is it's about who I'm becoming, and it's about me growing, me, stripping away those parts of my character that are impure and that I need to mature from. So I would just challenge people, and maybe you have some, reflections on that as well as we close.
Yeah, I mean, there's a really good song by an artist named Cray where he says, "I tend to get bitter, not better, but I'm trying to reverse those letters." And it's one of those things where like, we really do, and some people don't like to hear that, but we really do have a choice in the midst of our trials and our sufferings. Are we going to get bitter, or are we going to get better? And back to even with the softening. I mean, our hearts need to be softened for us to have empathy. Our hearts need to be softened for us to learn and to become basically malleable. It's like if you think about back in the old days, and even sometimes now, like wedding invites, they'll have the envelope on the back. They'll have a seal that is stamped in wax to close, the envelope. And the thing is if that wax is sitting there and you just push the seal on it and try to make an indention of the seal in there, if it's not been melted yet, then either you might make a slight little indention or you might actually crack it and destroy and break the wax. You need to heat it and then to be able to put the seal on it. And so that's just us too. I think we shy away from hard times and suffering, and especially chosen suffering. But sometimes it is chosen. But honestly, the people that have the most empathy and care for other people are the ones that have suffered much themselves. And so I think again, not that like, hey, just suffer, suffer, suffer all day long, but at the same time, in the midst of that, count it as joy. Make it something to where you say, I'm going to make sure I'm getting better from this. And you have discipline to look after not only your own heart and your perspective to not get better, but also to pull somebody else into the suffering with you to say, hey, I'm struggling. I need your help. And when I get angry or I want to give up or whatever, I want you to speak into me and remind me that I have a choice in the midst of this. And again, I'm not saying, and I know there are people that are suffering greatly out there, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be bitter and you shouldn't be upset or angry, but if you remain that way, it's going to hurt you in the long run. And the best thing we can do is figure out who we are. And again, those times that we suffer, sometimes like our world, like when I lost everything financially, my world was shaken. And all these things fell away that I thought that I had put up on this tree that I thought mattered so much. All these things were shaken off, and I saw what really mattered. What was the foundation of my life? What was the most important thing? And it was relationship. And from that relationship, I was able to build back my life. But had I not had all those things shaken off of me in the midst of that storm, that trial, that fire, I don't know where I would be today. So I'm so grateful, even though it was some of the most painful 5 to 7 years of my life. But I am so grateful for that now, and how that has allowed me to help other people, but also it's really made clear to me what matters most.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, thanks so much for the conversation today. This has been great. If you're a listener and you're new to You Not Me, you can find us in a number of different places. Chris is on Instagram at chris.bierman. You can also follow him on LinkedIn, Chris Bierman there. And then we also have the weekly You Not Me letter, which is on Substack that goes out every Saturday morning. It's completely free. So if you want to check us out more, you can find us at all these places in addition to younotme.com. Thanks so much for listening.